This video is brought to you by the Corsair PBT Double Shot Pro Keycap Mod Kits. Because everyone knows that once you clear all those Savage and Ultimate fights, you unlock the true endgame, Glamour. Compatible with all Corsair mechanical keyboards, you can take your IRL Glamour game to the next level. Choose from 6 beautiful color packs at Corsair.com and use code MISTECH for 10% off your next order. Hi everyone, welcome to the visual guide for the Minstrel's Ballad, Zodiark's Fall. This is one of 2 new extreme trials made available by patch 6.0 in Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. Whether or not you're a fan, Daniel, of this boss, this guide will be your salvation, guiding you like the stars in the night to the end. My name is MISTECH and I'll be your trial guide. This encounter begins with Kokitos, which will bring all players' health pools to 1. Healers will immediately need to top everyone off. Throughout the fight, the boss will cast Paradigma and summon a number of untargetable adds that will each throw out a specific AoE pattern. This first pattern spawns 4 birds in each corner of the platform that will each cast a large donut attack. Players will need to position themselves close to one of the adds to avoid getting hit. Sticks will target one of the healers for multiple shared hits. Every time this ability is cast, an extra hit of damage is added. This deals very high damage and all players will need to stack to share this damage while also using their available raid mitigation. Next, Anya will target the primary tank for a heavy hitting tank buster and debuff. Tank cooldowns on the targeted tank and a tank swap are required. When the boss casts Exotericus, one side of the platform will be targeted by either a purple or red circle. The purple triangle indicates a massive triangle AoE will form across the platform from the origin side. To dodge this, players can move towards the original side of the triangle. The red square indicates a massive rectangle AoE will form across that one half of the platform. To dodge this, players will need to move to the opposite side of the platform away from the original square side. The boss will then cast Esotericus, adding another pattern for players to dodge at the same time. Quickly identify which patterns are being cast and move into the available safe spots. These overlapping patterns can happen from random sides with random patterns, so players will need to be ready to adjust as necessary. The next Paradigma cast will spawn 2 birds and 2 behemoths adjacent to each other in a random orientation. The behemoths will throw out large point-blank AoE circles around them, and players will need to move away from these areas. At the same time, the boss will move to either the northwest or northeast corner and begin to cast Algadon, a very wide frontal line attack that will traverse the platform diagonally and knock back any player's hit. To avoid death, players will first need to determine which corner the boss is attacking from and move to the opposite corner that does not have a behemoth in it. Once there, they'll need to stand close to the bird but also on the side away from the center attack to avoid getting clipped by the wide overlapping AoE attacks. Next up, Phobos will deal high raid-wide damage and apply a 15-second bleed debuff on all players. Healers be ready to shield and heal as necessary. The next Paradigma combo will have 2 snakes spawning along one side of the platform. These snakes will throw out wide frontal line attacks across the platform directly in front of them. The boss will then cast another Exotericus pattern, followed by Astral Flow. This mechanic will have the platform turning in the direction of the flashing arrows, either clockwise or counterclockwise. Anytime the platform is affected by Astral Flow, the position of any adds on the platform will turn with it. However, the Exotericus patterns being outside of the platform will stay in the same spot. To handle this, players can first move to dodge the Exotericus pattern appropriately. As they do this, they'll need to determine how the platform adds will be repositioned once the platform turns, and then pre-positioned to avoid getting hit. In this first pattern, players will need to identify the safe lanes between the snakes and move into them preemptively. Once the platform starts moving, all players will be stuck in place, unable to adjust before the AoE attacks go off, so pre-positioning is key. There will be another tank buster and swap before the next Paradigma combo. In this combo, a set of snakes will appear on one side while the boss begins to cast Adikia, which will target the southwest and southeast sections of the platform for massive AoEs. Players will have to move towards the middle north of the platform and stand in the safe lane between the attacking snakes. Eventually, Zodiark will become invulnerable and begin to charge up his power gauge while 4 Roiling Darkness adds spawn in the center of the platform. These adds will need to be destroyed before the power gauge reaches 100 or you will die. During this time, Zodiark will also throw out random AoE patterns from the north side of the platform that should be avoided. The purple and red attacks are the same triangle and half-room rectangle attacks as the first phase. The green sigils will throw out wide line attacks directly in front of them. Since all of these attacks will go off at the same time, players will need to dodge each pattern in turn, all while destroying the adds in time. Once the adds are down, Zodiark will cast his ultimate attack and return to the fight. Astral Eclipse will have Zodiark flying around the platform, spawning a pattern of stars on each side. These stars will then fall onto the platform in the same orientation, and players must move into the safe safe zones for each starfall to avoid death. The trick to this is understanding that each pattern will fold down onto the platform, as if you were standing on a giant open book and the star pattern is on a page that is about to close on top of you. Any section without a star will be safe, and players will need to move into those areas to avoid death. The boss will then cast triple esoteric ray in a random order. Players will first have to move away from the ray that appears first, and then be ready to move out of the way of the next rays to spawn. The next Paradigma pattern will spawn 2 birds and 2 behemoths. From here on out, players will also need to be on the lookout for this diagonal fire line that forms from the mirrors on each corner of the platform. When the boss casts Astral Flow and the platform begins to move, this diagonal fire line will also move the platform, adding another mechanic players will have to take into account as they pre-position into the safe zones. Depending on the available safe spots, players will need to make small adjustments towards the inside or outside to also avoid the fire line rotation. Another Tank Buster and swap will lead into another Exotericus pattern to dodge with another Algadon cast. Dodge both mechanics appropriately to avoid getting debuffed or knocked off. The next Paradigma cast will have 4 birds spawn in each corner, 2 snakes on a random edge, and the fire line. Players will need to move close to a bird and then adjust inside that safe zone for both the rotating fire line and the snake attacks. Immediately after, the boss will target a healer with sticks. Stay stacked, shield, mitigate, and heal through as necessary. Trimorphos Exotericus will target the west, south, and east edges of the platform with purple triangles or red square attacks in a random order and pattern. Players will need to dodge each attack as necessary before moving into the middle to dodge a Dikia. Another Astral Eclipse will form, and players will need to dodge into the safe zones depending on the patterns shown in the sky once more. This is immediately followed by another Algadon cast, and players will need to move into the safe corners as soon as the final Astral Eclipse falls to the platform to avoid getting knocked off. Another Tank Buster and swap leads us into another Paradigma pattern. This pattern will have 2 snakes, the fire line, and an Exotericus pattern to dodge. The platform will also rotate, so don't forget to pre-position to dodge the rotated mechanics as necessary. Once the overlapping AoEs of this pattern go off, players will be targeted by a number of large AoE circles. Move away from these as necessary, but don't go too far as the group will immediately need to stack back up for the next Styx cast. Heal and mitigate through this damage as necessary. Next up, the boss will cast an Exotericus pattern followed by triple esoteric ray. The Exo and first ray will go off at the same time, so players will need to dodge these first before moving in to dodge the second set of rays. The next Paradigma cast will have 2 birds, 2 behemoths, the fire line, and a random Exotericus pattern on one of the edges. Identify which way the platform is rotating and pre-position into the safe zone, dodging the behemoths, fire line, and Exotericus. Another Phobos AoE blast and bleed to heal through, and the boss will cast another Trimorphos Exotericus. Players will have to dodge all 3 patterns in succession. Immediately after, the boss will cast Algadon, and players will need to move into the safe corner to avoid the knockback. Another Styx stack up to heal through into yet another Paradigma combo. This time, players will deal with 4 birds, 2 snakes, the fire line, and an Exotericus pattern. Find the bird in the safe spot away from the Exotericus pattern, then pre-position to avoid the snakes and fire line once the platform rotates. Stack for a final Styx combo. By now, this mechanic is doing some pretty hefty damage, so be ready with that mitigation. At this point, the boss will cast Apomnimnomodipta, and your chance of surviving this enrage is about as good as my pronunciation was of that word. Luckily, any number of these mechanics can be skipped based on your group's damage, and with practice you'll have them down long before the enrage begins. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Up next, we'll look into the second extreme trial. As always, thanks for watching. Till next time.